Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? Welcome officially to Season 2 of the Life Coaching Secrets podcast. I had such a blast producing 50 episodes for you last year, and I am ready to do it again and take everything to the next level. So buckle up. This is going to be such an amazing year, and I can't wait to share with you all of the content that I have been preparing for you over the past month. Now, I know it's been a while since I made an episode. I was home visiting family in New York for the holidays. Then when I got back home to Raleigh, I got sick for a little while, took some time to recover, and then immediately we began training a new cohort of coaches in Thriving Coach Academy. This cohort is insane. They are crushing it. Their skills are already such a high level, and they're just at the beginning of their coaching journey. So very, very pumped for our newest coaches we have in the academy. Now, I wanted to use this episode as an opportunity to reintroduce myself a little bit in case you're fairly new to the episode. So I'm going to start out by sharing my story and how I discovered life coaching and went on to have success as a coach. And I'm also going to share a part of my story that I haven't shared before because I came up with this concept that I call hustle nostalgia. And if you're in your early phase of launching your business and maybe you feel like you're throwing so many things at the wall, nothing's sticking, you're feeling discouraged, you're questioning if it's time for you to give up, I hope that my story can inspire you to stick with it a little bit longer and to give yourself another chance because I went through a lot of struggle when I got started as well. And I'm going to pull back the curtain and share those with you in this episode. Now, I am a credentialed life coach, and I've been coaching for over 7 years now. I'm also the founder of Thriving Coach Academy. So after I went on to have my own success as a life coach, I went on to start training coaches, and I've trained over 1,000 coaches to date, and it's been such an amazing journey. So how I got into coaching, let me rewind back the clock. Before I got into coaching, I was hopping around job to job, doing work that didn't light me up, and really wondering what it was I wanted to do with my life. And one day I was with a friend and she was reading a psychology textbook, and I had never studied anything about psychology before. So she let me borrow the book and I started to flip through the pages, and immediately I was captivated with every single page that I was reading. I was so immersed, knowing all of these ideas and theories about the mind and how it works and our emotions and how we're able to determine how we feel and what we do, and all of the psychology things just really inspired me. So I decided I wanted to start studying it more. So as I was studying psychology, I was considering career paths that had to do with mental health. And I knew that one of the most common career paths would be becoming a therapist or counselor. But as I was examining that a bit more, I realized that therapists were under strict regulations in how they could run their business and where they could work, who they could work with, and how much they could charge. And I also knew that therapists mostly work with mental illness. They work with diagnosing people with mental illness and treating that. And I didn't want to be dealing with mental illness all the time. I wondered about where's the other half of mental health? Where's the support for people that aren't necessarily struggling with a mental illness, but they're looking for support. They're stuck and they're wanting guidance moving forward. So that's when I did some research and I found life coaching through searching online. And I learned about how life coaches have tremendous freedom in how they can run their practice and also how they can make an impact. And freedom was my top value, and it still is. So I really loved the idea of being able to work on my own terms, be my own boss, work when I want, with who I wanted to work with, live where I wanted to work, and also charge what I wanted to charge. So I decided to go through a coach training program and really immerse myself in becoming a life coach. And when I started to when I started to grow my business, I was driven by the desire to help people. I didn't have any kind of business training, and unfortunately, the training program that I went through, they didn't provide me with any kind of business support. So I was really left to figure it all out on my own. And after a ton of trial and error, I was able to discover what works and what doesn't work and build my business up to be multiple six figures. And this was before I turned 30 years old. So I was really blown away at all the success. I was really inspired to just help people and make a difference. And the money followed as a result of that. So after my business took off, I was invited to be a lead instructor at the exact program that trained me. And this is one of the biggest coaching schools on the planet. So I was an instructor for their program, and I began noticing some patterns as I was teaching coaches. I noticed that a lot of the students would be incredibly overwhelmed as they'd go through this program. And part of the program was structured where the students would have to go through these extremely long 30-hour weekends of training where they were given a ton of information at once and left to really figure it out. So I remember one day I was training a group of coaches, and at the end of one of those 30-hour weekends, I asked the students to raise their hand if they were feeling overwhelmed. And every single person in the room had raised their hand. And this was so frustrating for me because I knew that this was not the ideal learning environment for coaches to experience. And I also knew that there was so much more that they had to learn about the business. So most of the program was fluff. It was just cramming the coaches with information they didn't really need and leaving out the essential parts of knowing the business of coaching that they truly could have benefited from. So I would see a lot of these coaches graduate from that program, and they would go on to now spend even more money to get the business training that they were lacking. So I thought one day, what if I could provide everything under one roof? What if I could start my own coach training program that can teach people how to master both the art and the business of coaching? So that way they don't have to figure it out. And also, how can I simplify this program so that way there's no fluff? They don't have to go through these long, exhausting weekends where they're fire hosed with information, and really have an ideal learning environment that's going to set them all up for success. And that is exactly what inspired me to create what is now Thriving Coach Academy. And our program has gone on to train so many coaches. And what's really amazing is because I was able to apply all the things that I know coaches really need as someone who also struggled at the start myself, we've been able to see our coaches go on to have more success just by the time they're like a third through the program than what I would see coaches from the other program that I would train for have even when they got finished with their certification. So that is what inspired Thriving Coach Academy. Now, when I was getting started with my own coaching business, before I created Thriving Coach Academy, I was super confused on how it is that you find clients and how do you actually start to market yourself. So many days I dreaded getting to work on my business. And I know if you're listening to this, there may be that feeling of dread that you have at times with your own coaching business. And one of the things that I notice as well with the coaches in the academy today is that sometimes they go through stress and they go through some doubt that comes up for them. And it's interesting now that I've come full circle and my business is way beyond the beginner hustle phase, because when I hear coaches in the academy talk about those initial and normal struggles that every entrepreneur goes through, I noticed that I would feel a sense of nostalgia for them. I noticed that I would feel this appreciation and kind of like this sentimental longing for the time in my business, those first couple of years where I went through my hustle phase. So when you think about nostalgia, here's what the definition of that word is. Nostalgia is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations, okay? So it's this longing for the past. And I noticed that when I was in my hustle phase of my business the first couple of years, where everything was so fresh and so new, so different, when I was in it, it was a lot to handle, right? There was a lot of stress, there were a lot of decisions to make. And it wasn't until after I got out of that hustle phase that I started to have appreciation for that time in my business. I started to have nostalgia. So that's how I came up with the term hustle nostalgia. Okay. Now, every single business goes through a hustle phase. Do not listen to any mentor or guru that tells you otherwise. Okay. There's no such thing of just getting rich quick and not having any kind of struggle. Now, why I believe that that's a good thing to have struggle is I think that anything worthwhile in life requires effort. Okay. Anything in life that is worthwhile, it requires effort. So when you go through a business, it's going to require effort, right? But the effort that you're going to put into it is 10 times less and it's 10 times easier when you go through the academy because we streamline it. We give you the frameworks that work. We lay it out for you. It still requires effort. So what I want to share with you, if you're in your hustle phase of your business, if you're right now really feeling the stress of, going through those initial chapters of formulating the business and piecing it together, getting your first few clients, starting to market yourself, right? You probably are noticing all of the negatives of this time of your business. You probably don't see beyond it because you're so consumed by just the hustle and the grind, all right? So as someone who is way outside of the hustle phase of their business, I want to share with you some of the secret joys and benefits of the hustle phase that you might find yourself in right now. So the first secret joy of being in the hustle phase of your business is that it's a time of all of your firsts. It's the first time that you put yourself out there as a coach. It's the first time that you introduce yourself to people as a life coach. The first time you go to a networking event. The first time that you ever will launch a program or make an offering. It's the first time you're going to fail. It's the first time that you're going to hear the word no from a potential client. It's the first time you're going to plan a workshop or a webinar and no one's going to show up. It's the first time you're going to have someone book a consult with you and they're not going to show up. It's the first time that you're going to experience some kind of crash with technology. It's also the first time you're going to enroll a paying client. I remember the first time I enrolled a paying client, I was shaking. As the client was giving their credit card information over the phone, I was shaking. And after we hung up, I started screaming and dancing around my apartment. That only happens once. These firsts are all you got. It's also the first time you'll have a client ask for a refund. It happens to all businesses. It's normal. Okay, so I share all of this because I want you to know that there's something very precious and innocent and beautiful about experiencing any kind of first in life. It might feel painful and dreadful, and you might want to rip off the Band-Aid and move through the pain right away. But I invite you to let there be that pain and also be open to the possibility that you're going to look back on this phase of your business with appreciation, maybe even with a little bit of longing, right? Now, in any moment you're in your hustle phase, it might feel like the world is crashing down. But here's what happens. You have some kind of challenge come up for you, then you figure it out, then you learn the lesson you need to learn, you grow and you move on, and you repeat that cycle. Now, the next time that problem presents itself, it doesn't create such an extreme reaction from you because now you're cultivating the resources you need to handle it. The internal resources. You're cultivating the patience, the persistence, the curiosity, right? The gratitude. You're cultivating all of the states that are ultimately setting your business up for long-term success. Something else that's so special about the hustle phase of the business, beside it being a time of all the firsts, It's also a time when you learn so fast. Everything is so exciting and you are learning at such a fast pace, right? You are learning so much about marketing, about selling, about connecting with people, about communication. Of course, you're learning about coaching, right? You're learning so many skills at once at such a fast pace, and that is very exciting, right? After we leave schooling, for many of you, it may have been college. For some of you, it might have been high school or even post-grad. When you leave a schooling environment, oftentimes as adults, the learning slows down and it stops. When you decide you're going to become a coach and start a coaching business, all of this learning starts to happen. It starts to happen very quickly, and it's so exciting, right? So how amazing that this is a time of your life that you get to learn so much so quickly. Very few times in your life where you experience that. I still experience a ton of learning at the level I'm at my business now, but it's not the same, right? I feel like a lot of the learning I'm doing now is more on like polishing and refining skill sets that I've mastered over the years. But when I was getting started, it was all very fresh. You're just getting into it, okay? You're making all the mistakes. It's like when a baby learns to walk, they fall down so many times and then they learn how to walk. They don't have to think about walking anymore. It just happens kind of on autopilot. So that is another one of the secret joys of being in the hustle phase of your business. You get to learn so much so quickly, right? There's a ton of awkwardness that happens in all of these firsts, but it's also super exciting. Oh my gosh, it's happening. It's happening. I'm growing a business. People are responding. People are reaching out to me. Right? It's the time when you start thinking, wow, it's actually happening. I'm really doing this. I'm actually starting my own life coaching business, right? Like right now, 7 years later, I don't have that experience anymore. I'm not like, wow, I'm so excited. I'm launching a life coaching business, right? It's just so ingrained in who I am and what I do. I still love it. It's still meaningful. It's purposeful, and I don't see myself doing anything else. But there's something about that initial enthusiasm and excitement when you're just in the beginning phase and you don't get that back. So enjoy that excitement. Yes, that's going to be a lot of emotional ups and downs, but see the bigger picture that this is such an exciting time in your life. It's the time that you are taking that dream that you probably had for a long amount of time. You probably had signs in your life pointing you to become a life coach, and you're actually doing it. It's becoming real. It's happening. Now, one of the other secret joys of the hustle phase of your business is you learn how to solve problems and become resourceful. Okay? You will be faced with problems and you will learn how to solve them all. When you do this, you learn that you are able to figure out anything that presents itself to you. You will blow your own mind with your ability to solve problems. And I believe that as you do this more and more, you really discover your potential. You really get to learn how to solve problems and create value. You realize the true value that you have to offer, right? You get to feel that for the first time. I was just supporting one of our coaches in one of our business calls today, and she brought up how she is afraid to put herself out there because she doesn't think she has any value to offer. And this is a common challenge that I would say just about every single coach goes through, including me when I got started. I questioned if I had anything valuable to offer. And it was beautiful to see how in just coaching her over that session, she was able to walk away feeling like she had value to offer to people. And she was excited to start sharing herself more as a coach. And right, like this was a struggle for her to get there. But also just think about how 2 years from now, that coach is going to look back at this time and go, wow, that was the phase when I got to discover my true value. I mean, this gives me chills when I talk about it, because this is what I went through when I got started. I didn't know what my value was. And that the hustle phase, the first couple of years, is when I really let go of all of those rules, all of those old limiting beliefs that would tell me that I didn't have value, that my voice didn't matter, that I wasn't interesting. I had to challenge every single one of those and let them go so I can start believing the truth of who I am. So I could start believing that I had value to offer and that there were people that were interested in coaching and that I had something special to share with the world, right? Like now I don't question that. It just comes naturally, right? I'm just able to show up and share. It's become so autopilot. But I remember and honor that time in my business, the hustle stage, when I actually got to learn that about myself. So as you move through the hustle stage of your business, because let me tell you this, it does not last forever. I know some of you might think, this seems to be going on and on. When is the struggle going to end? I promise you, it does not last forever. And I also encourage you just to appreciate this chapter. It's just a chapter in the entire book of your business, right? There is an end to the chapter, no matter how terrible things might seem at times for you, okay? So what will happen after you move through this chapter is the awkwardness around your business is going to start to dissolve, okay? It's not going to feel so weird and awkward to call yourself a life coach. It's not going to feel so weird or awkward to market yourself and sell to people, right? It won't be so weird or awkward to post online about your content, your ideas, your messages. You're not going to be questioning yourself as much. So the awkwardness goes away, but the passion and the meaning is still there. I believe that the journey of entrepreneurship as a life coach has been the most rewarding, meaningful, spiritually fulfilling journey of my life. Hands down, for sure. So while the hustle phase does wear off, you transition out of that, it's still absolutely worth it. It's still absolutely worth it. There's no chapter of the business that is as innocent and precious as the hustle phase. Now, one of the ways I like to think about the hustle phase as well is when you think about raising a child. And I'm not a parent, but I've coached a lot of parents, and this is a common theme that I've heard through speaking and coaching to lots of parents. I often hear stories that for the first few years, it's very difficult. The baby might be crying very often. There's so much stress and confusion about what to do as a parent because you're still figuring it out. And then the baby becomes a toddler. They mellow out a bit most of the time. They become a teenager, then they become an adult, and then they leave the nest to live their life. And what's really interesting is that I've heard many parents say that they miss those first few years with their baby. But if you were to ask them if they enjoyed that first few years, when they were in those first few years, they were certainly not enjoying it. So isn't that interesting? They have this nostalgia for the struggle, for the time where there was the most struggle, because it was the time of all the firsts. It was the time when they were learning so quickly. It was the time when they were becoming resourceful. It was the time they were discovering what it really means to be a parent, right? This is exactly what it's like when you go through the hustle stage of your business. So what if it were possible that at some point you can look back on the stage you're in right now and go, wow, that was pretty awesome. I was such a badass for going through all that. So hear me out. If you are struggling in your coaching business right now, if you feel like everything's falling apart, nothing's sticking, and you want to give up because you feel like nothing is working, I hear you, and I have been there many times. And my message that I want to leave you with is to keep playing the game. Stay on the train. I tell our coaches in the academy, stay on the train. The train is always moving forward, and you're allowed to run all the way to the caboose of the train. You're allowed to run all the way to the back, but you've got to stay on the train. And I promise you, it will be so worth it. Imagine yourself a couple of years from now having success, more success as a coach, looking back at the struggle you're in right now and going, wow, I missed that. Good times. Those were some good times. You never get the hustle stage of your business back. So rather than trying to rush through it and rip off the Band-Aid and make yourself miserable through the whole experience, I encourage you to enjoy it while it lasts. All right, that's what I got on Hustle Nostalgia. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.